Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life, and I may have said this before, so forgive me. But one of the real thrills about being able to do these interviews is the variety of people that I get to talk with. And I was thinking just a month or so ago, I talked with Peggy Lutz, who is a World War II veteran and written about her experience during the war. And as you can imagine, Peggy is 95. Today we're going to go to the other end of the age spectrum. This young lady is the youngest person that I've gotten the chance to talk with, and I'm so impressed with her accomplishments. Her name is Amaya Martinez, and I suggest that you remember that name because I think you're going to be hearing from her in the future. So Amaya, welcome. I want to, in the interest of full disclosure, we've met before.
Yes.
Yes. And why did we meet?
Because you're my grandfather.
Oh, okay. So, yes, Amaya's is one of my grandkids. But her work has just been so impressive. You're 13 now.
Yes.
You wrote a book mostly when you were 12.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. But really, I want to start with your first publication, which is Highlights Magazine. Tell me, how did that come about?
I always wanted to get in, and there were just all these different things, and everyone I tried, they were always like, "Oh, sorry, we can't get you in." And so I was like, I'll just go with a joke. Like,
Okay.
that's
Oh, I
what
didn't know that you wrote other things.
Yeah.
Okay, what did you write before that? Little articles or?
Yeah, I wrote like little mini newspapers and stuff.
Okay,
and
okay. For highlights or just for yourself?
No, just for myself.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay. And then how did you discover that your work was accepted?
I was actually just reading one of my magazines, and I was like, oh, that sounds so familiar. Like, why? And I looked down at the name, and I was like, oh, that's me.
That's so cool.
And so then, of course, I had to show my whole family and everything.
Yeah.
And so.
And I wanted to tell you a story. I don't think you know this. Many years ago, there was a woman who, as a little girl, wanted to do what you did. She wanted to write, and she entered a contest sponsored by their local bank, and it was an essay contest about the town. It was a small town, and they just wanted to hear from kids what they thought of the town. So this young lady wrote an essay, she submitted it, and she won. And she found out that she was the only entrant. And I thought that that's such a good lesson because you have to send your work out. You have to submit it. And you did that. Yeah. And you won. I think that's winning. And am I right that your mom didn't even know that you did it?
I actually don't know.
Okay.
So.
But you did it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't do that for you. So I want to talk about your book, and very impressive. And tell me the title.
Maggie and the Mystical Woods.
Okay. What I was so impressed with, number one, there were several things, but number one is that you did it. Because, as I've said before on the show, everybody wants to have written, but writing is hard. It's hard for a lot of people. You seem so dedicated. As I understand it from your mom, you write every day, which is so important. To get to that point, there's another saying, and the saying is, if you want to write, you have to read. And I know that you're an avid reader. So name some of the books that you've read, maybe something that you particularly like or that you think to yourself, oh, that was great, I want to try to do it like that. Can you name some? I know you did Harry Potter.
Yeah. Did read Harry Potter. I did like that.
Yeah. So. And what else? A Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
Yes,
maybe?
I read that
too.
Okay.
When you read, is there, and it's probably, there's no wrong answer here, and there's probably lots of right answers, but what are you drawn to? Do you like the setting? You know, it's in the mystical woods, that's a setting? Or do you like the character, or what do you think you're drawn to?
It's kind of all over the place. Like
Sure.
sometimes it is the setting, or sometimes it's the character,
Uh-huh.
or sometimes it's just like the animals that are in it,
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
So it's just all over the place,
Yeah.
different things.
And when you wrote your book, I'm so interested in, how did you start? What gave you the idea for that?
So I don't remember where we were, but we were on a train and we were going through the woods. And
You really were. This is real life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like thinking, what if a girl got lost in here? Like, what if that was me or something? Like,
Perfect.
someone got lost.
Yeah.
And then I've always loved just like different creatures and stuff. So I was like,
Right.
and what if, like, I don't know, something found me or whatever. And
Right.
then, like, it just went from there. And then I was like, well, that might be a good idea for one of my stories. I'll just write it down, but I'll probably never finish it.
Yeah.
Because that's what most of my stories, I never end up finishing it.
Uh-huh.
So.
But so the what if is one of the perfect ways to start. And I wanted to ask you too, that's kind of a plot thing when you say what if. How did you come up with Maggie? What is it? She's about your age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's a prankster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know actually. Like, I've had different characters, but she's my only one that's like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of how she came along.
Okay. I know, I've seen your book. In fact, I think you brought it with you. What I would call character development. In fact, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
would you maybe read a little bit?
Sure. Let's see.
And I want to say character is the other side of this thing. So some people start with character. It sounds like you started with plot.
Yeah.
And then you need to populate that world, and that's what you've done here.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to set this here. Maggie Campbell is 12 when the story starts. Born to Elizabeth and John Campbell, adopted by Annie and Patrick London. Favorite color, blue. Favorite animal, porcupines. She is also a prankster. So that's just kind of what I wrote for everyone.
So about that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's more.
Uh-huh.
Like a lot more. But, yeah, that's kind of what it is. So, do you
Well,
want to hear more? Or should
Yeah,
I
why don't you do another one or two?
Okay.
Because they're so important. And it's
Yeah.
not that character is exclusive of plot. I think the best stories combine both. But it sounds like you started with what you want to have happen, or at least the what if, and then you came up
Yeah.
with your folks here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Sarah Jones is 12 years old. She is a great friend and has a fear of getting adopted. Favorite color, light blue. Favorite animal, hamsters. That one was shorter than I thought.
Uh-huh.
Let's see.
How about one of the adults?
One of the adults. Let's see. Oh, that one was really short. Jeez. Richard Moon is 40 years old, happily married to Alyssa Moon, was bitten by a werewolf when he was 8 and has been one ever since. Great sense of humor, favorite color, unknown, favorite animal, unknown. Also head of the Inventing Company Society.
Yeah. Couple of things. I wondered how you picked their names. Did it just come to you? Did you work at that?
Some of them were just names that I've always liked.
Yeah.
Other ones, I did have to really think about it. And then, like, some were just people in my life that
Yeah.
I'd pick out of it.
Sure.
So,
You know, when you're writing names, your characters' names really are important, especially the protagonist. And on my first book, I worked hard on that. His name is Jim Bass, or that's what he renames himself. And I honestly did that because it was short. And I was thinking of the movie Tom Horn, which you probably don't know. But 3 letters and 4 letters, and Jim Bass is the same. And so I think that I was told this, that your character's name should, when you say it, and the reader doesn't have to know this, but it really conjures up an image of that character. And so Maggie is really short for Margaret, generally. Sometimes it's not. Do you think her name is Margaret?
Sometimes I do, and then other times I'm like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then other times I'm like, no, it's not.
Okay.
Like, it just seems to bounce from all 3.
Okay.
Most of the time it's right in the middle, like, I'm not sure. But right now, where I'm at is yes, it is.
Okay.
So.
I wondered about Mr. Moon. Is because I don't know the werewolf legend. Does the moon have something to do with that? Is that why you picked that?
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it has to be a full moon? Is that it? I've got my monsters mixed up here.
Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed to be, but I just kind of do it whenever it's like right there, they can see it, kind of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
In a couple of minutes, can you talk about the plot? What happens? And the reason that I am asking this particular thing is I think that you've done some sophisticated things for your age and for your first book. And one of the things is there's a character arc. And so Maggie starts with kind of one attitude at the beginning, and she has a kind of a different attitude at the end. And I wondered, did you mean to do that, or is it a sense that you get from reading so many books that there is an arc?
Yeah, I would think so, that from reading so many books, they do just, most of the time, they seem to kind of change a little bit, but I know that sometimes they're like, well, I guess I'll go back to my old ways, kind of thing.
But she does change.
Yeah.
I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you think she's a nicer person at the end?
I think so.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like she goes back to her old ways, but I feel like she has come a long way.
And I think that that's realistic, because I don't think generally we change 100%.
Yeah.
So there's just something that changes. I wanted to ask you also, why an orphan? That seems to be a sort of a common theme. I wonder what it is about orphans. Do we see ourselves maybe, or do we fear that? I don't know.
I don't know. I've most of the time written about orphans. But I don't know if that's just like, if it is a fear, or if I just feel bad for them. Like, I don't know what it is, but I've just always seemed to write about them.
I don't know either. Sometimes I wonder, we want connection, but connection also limits us. And I wondered if being an orphan, there's a certain amount of freedom, maybe, that's hold me but not too close kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah. So now you've started another book.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about it.
So it's the second book for Maggie's
Oh, okay.
recent.
So is she the protagonist?
Yes.
Okay.
So then she, it's kind of like after she gets adopted, it's like, I don't know, stories of that, I guess. I don't know how to explain it.
Okay.
But there's like this mystery house that was burned down before she came, and she's always asking about it, and they're always like, oh, it doesn't matter, just don't worry about it. But she's always so interested in it. And so
I think that's another thing that we like in our characters, that they don't give up. Maybe they're more curious than we are.
Yeah.
Maybe they are more single-minded. I think so often, like a hero, and Maggie's kind of a hero.
Yes.
I think what they do is where we have the practicality of, oh, I have to go to school, or I have to go to my job, or I have to conform. A lot of times the hero doesn't conform.
Yeah.
And I think that's your girl, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about rewriting, because I know that you worked on your first book a lot.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Do you write the whole book and then go back, or and what motivates you to rewrite something?
Yeah. So usually what I do is I'll write a couple chapters and then go back and just read it through and see
Okay.
like what I maybe did wrong that I didn't want. And then I'll do that and then write a couple more chapters and then keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that I'll just finish the book and then keep rereading it a couple of times.
And you probably have a
So-
sense of rhythm or something that.
Yeah.
There's a famous playwright, in fact, he unfortunately died recently, Neil Simon, and he wrote a book called Rewrite, and he says writing is rewriting. And there are authors, and I won't maybe mention any names, but they, they'll have a following. They'll write 1 or 2 or 3 books that are terrific, and then they kind of phone it in after that. And a friend of mine says they're writing past their sell-by date. You know, that typically good work doesn't come out like that the first time. You need to go over it and take another look at it.
Yeah.
So I think you've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. The character analysis that you've done, or that's my word for it, do you do this first, or do you sort of visualize the person, what they look like, or how do you do that?
So a lot of times what happens is like I'll be writing my story and then I'm like, oh, I need another character here, so then I'll start writing them down.
Mm-hmm.
So then I like get an idea and then, I can write them in
Mm-hmm.
and then I can always go back and keep adding and stuff.
I love that
So-
about writing. I don't know if you and I talked about it, that authorship, writing isn't performance art. So nobody has to see it until you're ready for them. So you can write it, you can get to the end and you go, oh, she started with blonde hair, but now she has dark hair. I need to go back and fix that. Or whatever it is. Sometimes you want to add something. If it's a mystery, and yours is kind of a mystery, maybe you want to go back and put clues in at the beginning so that at the end it seems like the conclusion is inevitable. You don't want the reader to get there too fast, but you don't want them to feel cheated either.
Mhm.
So, and that's what I like about writing, that you can just do it, you can rewrite it until you're happy with it.
Yeah.
Well, good. This is a fanciful setting, and I know your grandma, when she read it, she said, how does Amaya think of these things? So I'm going to ask you, how do you come up with people living in a volcano?
I've actually always wanted to live in a volcano.
As we do, sure.
Yeah, but I just like I don't remember if it was like a couple years ago or something so it was probably when I started getting older that I realized I couldn't live in a volcano. So I was like, I have to write this down because
Mm-hmm.
if I can't, someone else can. So
With my first book, I got a call from a newspaper, and we did a phone interview, and the person said, because, my setting is realistic, but not everybody's experience is the same. And in fact, one of the characters is a truck driver. And so the reporter said, will people be able to relate to somebody whose experience is so different than their own? And I said, well, I think we read for a couple of different reasons. One is to confirm or validate our own life. So when you read something and you say, you know what, I felt like that too. That's a confirmation. But I've never lived on Mars, and so when you read about somebody who did, that's a way to experience something new and different. And so I think somebody who lives in a volcano was a little bit, I've never done that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get to explore. And then I have to say also, author Sue Grafton said that she wrote murder mysteries because it was either that or actually kill her husband, and she thought that wasn't a good idea. So
Yeah.
just write about it. Well, good. And I know you write all the time. What do you feel? And so what I want to say is, when I'm writing well, I feel like I'm sort of in a little bit of a dream, almost like I'm watching a movie. Are you that involved in your writing?
A lot of times I feel like I'm reading someone else's book.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Or I am watching a movie or something like that. Like, it's just like it becomes not reality, but kind of reality. Like,
It's your reality for the moment.
yeah.
Yeah. There was a contest, and I think they do this every year, and the publisher is Tin House, and they have, I don't know if it's called flash fiction or what, but they'll give you a theme and a word limit, and I think it's only 500 words, which is very short. And one of the themes one time was an author's conversation with their character. And it was really fun and interesting to hear how the characters talk back and forth, because they do sort of take on a life of their own, or they can. Does that ever happen to you? That maybe Maggie does something that you didn't expect her to?
Yeah, that's happened a lot. Just like different things. I'm like, why would she do that? And I'm like, well, I guess I could change it, but then I'm like, no, it's already, like, I feel like it's already been set in motion. Like, I feel like it's almost too good to take out.
Well, that's perfect. I think, you know, some of this creativity is organic, and I actually have a friend who's a very successful mystery writer, and she said she didn't know until the end of her book who did the murder, and never thought that it was the person who in the end it turned out to be. And she is the kind of person who intricately plots her stories, and so for her to be surprised, I thought was quite something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any plans for the future? I mean, I know that you're working on a book, but do you think this may be your career?
Yes and no. Because sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like, this will be it. Like,
Yeah. This is what you do.
Yeah. But then other times I'm like, well, maybe it's just kind of like a side job or something, and then do something else.
Yeah.
So.
It's hard to make a living as a writer, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're awfully good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, folks, I think that's we've wrapped it up, but I sure appreciate you watching. And as I said, Amaya Martinez is going to be, I think, quite a well-known author. So you can write me at stephenwlong.com. That's my website. And we just appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much. And thank you.
What do you think? We done?
I don't know, you guys wanna do one just with yourself without me doing the
As long as they think we're
podcast?
done, if
No,
they got
no,
enough, they got enough.
They got enough? Probably, okay, sounds good.
Let's go lunch.
Oh.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just bite too.